Hello, and welcome to another episode of Rotmg Discord History, the history of dungeon raids. Today we'll be looking at some of the oldest discords alongside some we missed in previous videos to see how the raiding system changed over time. Primitive era. Back before we had discords, there already was some form of organizing runs and getting keep hoppers. Keep hops would normally be compensated for a payment of stat potions upfront or after the dungeon was completed. Ladder was normally reserved for when the keep hopper and the runners already had an established relationship and trust, most often through a guild. You could also call this the era of guilds, since they were the most efficient way to get consistent and clean dungeon runs for Candyland, Tomb, and later Shadows 2. Early Discord era. When Discord started gaining traction, it was inevitable that it would be used, as it offered a more reliable way to gather people, especially keep hoppers, and to organize runs without the limit of 50 people guilds had. These Discords were used to gather potions, organize runs, and compensate hoppers as well as staff. There were no voice chats with leading yet. Rotmg. This Discord was one of the most popular and successful Discords during this time. You would join and pay a weekly fee of 2 to 4 life potions for your Shadow roll, which allowed you to access runs. Shadows was the main dungeon, as it had by far the most desirable loot, as the people paying the fee would normally not care about the life potions, but wanted to get the UT rings like Brace and Crown. Tombs would also be run there. The server died in 2018 when the new Discord meta without pitching started taking hold. Crazy keys. This Discord was also popular but worked quite differently. Firstly, you could join runs without paying the fee, but there were still subscription roles for more exclusive runs. This Discord also did not focus on just the Shadows, but was more of an old dungeon Discord for OTs, Tombs, Davy, Shadows, and Lord. Same as Rotmg, the server slowly died off in 2018 when Lost Halls Discords picked up the pace. Lost Halls 1.0 era. As discussed in my dedicated video, Lost Halls made massive waves during its release. What I forgot to mention though was that unlike any dungeon before, it featured a guaranteed life potion for everyone who completed either the Cult or the Void. This caused an abundance of life potions, which meant pitching was no longer needed. Instead, you now required massive groups of 80 to 120 people to get a completion. Discords like Lost Halls and SBC would therefore not run at the same time, but have a dedicated time zone in order to get this amount of people. Since the vial to unlock the Void only dropped from a cult, the group would normally split to do both dungeons on every key for more efficiency. Discords also tracked the vial drops at this time, as it was considered valuable, so you didn't want other Discords to steal them. Void Entity Squad. This Discord was founded by the same people as Rotmg. The reason it didn't take off though was because they didn't have any kind of raid leading yet, which was the key for efficient and reliable completions outside of group size. This is why the Discord was scrapped and rebranded as SBC, a Discord everyone should be familiar with. Lost Halls Hideout. This Discord tried to be the third big Lost Halls Discord before LHZ was founded. Like SPC, it did not allow hackers, but unlike it didn't have experienced people to rely on for high quality runs, which would have allowed for runs with a smaller group of 80. Ultimately, it couldn't take off quite as much as its 2 containers with a nuke and soft reboot, making it so it had no chance when LHZ came out. Post Lost Halls 2.0. The rework of Lost Halls was partially made to minimize the need for coordinated groups like Discords. Instead, the popularity of Discords skyrocketed alongside the interest for the dungeon. Void was made less punishing to allow small groups. You now did Void or Cult every run and not both. Also, the map now followed more clear and set rules. Due to the servers and dungeons crashing, dungeon caps were introduced for 80 players, later changed to 50. Thanks to bad HP scaling, which forced small groups over big ones. Every endgame dungeon would have their own dedicated Discord and runs, where there would be requirements and dungeon specific callouts. Strategies. Since Discords had cemented themselves as the best way to organize, runs were improved wherever possible. Now we're going to look at a few of the strategies. Rushes. In Shadows and Cults, rushes would use Rogue or Trickster to rush past enemies and kill switches or pots, allowing the group to clear less and be faster. Full skips. In full skips, mostly in Lost Horse and Nest, Mystics and Tricksters would stasis or decoy enemies while Knights would stun. This allowed the group to run past enemies straight to the boss. High requirements and vet sections, something nearly every Discord had. As people got more experienced and had better gear, there was suddenly a demand for high requirement runs to maximize the speed of runs even further. Discords would often set a new world record for a dungeon in order to show off. Splitting. For Fungo, rushing or full skipping wasn't viable, which is why groups opted to split in 2 or 3 and clear the dungeon faster this way. Honorable mentions. I also wanted to mention some noteworthy Lost Horse Discords I overlooked past this era until now. Firstly, the Lost Boys, propped up as an underdog by YouTubers like TS Page, Mercurybox and Yin Yang. Next, Century Cleanup Crew, partnered with the only big podcast Rome has ever had, Deca Debrief, and focused on Sentry runs. And lastly, Nexus Defense Force, a predecessor to Exaltation Discords today, which ran all endgame dungeons at the time, Lost Horse, Shadows and Nests. It shut down because the owners, hosts and Kidforce became Deca employees. Well, I hope you found this episode interesting. With this, I hopefully covered the older ages of Rotmg Discords more or less completely. Tell me in the comments if you recognized some of the Discords mentioned. Part of the reason why this one took so long was because I started 3 more scripts while working on this. You can expect the history of Fame Trains, Top Guilds, and maybe even Shadows in the next few uploads then. There's also another reason I've been a bit slow, which is me taking on 3 more Discords that I will be making small introductions on very soon, alongside a full overview of the active Discords we have at the moment. In any case, there's still a lot to talk about, so if you're interested in this kind of thing, feel free to leave a like or subscribe to the channel, as well as, comment on or share the videos, maybe? Well, that's all from me. Until next time, goodbye.